Welcome to another episode of the Red Flag Coaches. I am Dr. T.
Hey, and I'm Lawrence Knighton.
All right, and today's episode, listen, we got on our green. We're usually talking about red flags, but today we are going to flip the script and talk about some green flags.
We are definitely appreciative of your support, and we do not take it for granted that you guys show up and watch these podcasts, and we want to make sure that you continue getting great content, so let's get it started.
All right, so here we are, how to spot green flags and what to look for while dating. Like I said earlier, we're always focusing on those red flags, but today, in honor of our green, we want to talk a little bit about the green flags. What do you need to look for in the dating realm when you are starting out in that relationship and you're trying to find data? Because we always say when you are dating, you are looking for what?
Some data.
Some data. That's
Information.
right. That's right. So today we're going to talk about 5 things that you should be looking for in your relationship. 5. That's it. There's a whole bunch more, but we only want to give you 5 today.
Let's get it started.
Here we go. So how to spot green flags while dating. Are y'all ready for this? Are y'all ready? I know when Lawrence and I were dating, we talked so much. There was a lot of communication between the two of us because he's a talker. That's his love language. He is a straight up talker. And we talked about everything. And so it was during our time of dating that we were able to build a really solid foundation for a friendship, right?
Right.
And it was through that friendship that helped me to kind of solidify where I wanted to be in the relationship, because you really opened up a lot about your own mistakes in your relationships, my mistakes in my relationships. And it was through that we were able to kind of build the relationship we have now.
Right.
And so when people ask us all the time, well, what is a key ingredient to building a good, solid relationship? I laugh because my husband's love language is talking. So it is through that exchange that we find out how we're feeling about each other, how we're feeling about life in general. And that's one of the things that I feel like a lot of relationships are lacking in today. They have nothing to talk about. You and I can talk about politics. We can talk about gymnastics. We can't talk about football and baseball and basketball because that's neither one of us. But we find a lot of things that we talk about.
Absolutely.
We talk about our families. When I was going back to school, we talked about that. We talked about what I was writing papers on and different things. And so that's what I want to share in today is what are some of those things that you should be looking for as you're dating? What are some of those green flags that you can kind of lay your head on and go, okay, wait a minute. This is a good thing that's showing up in this relationship.
Exactly.
So here's the first one. Active listening. Goes hand in hand with that communication.
Yeah, I want to say this before I really go into this. When we talk about communication, if you have no communication, you have nothing. Mm-hmm. There cannot be a healthy relationship without having healthy communication. Notice I said healthy communication.
Right.
And a part of healthy communication is active listening. Mm-hmm. But in most instances, men are always listening to try to fix things. Well, in the initial dating phase is different.
Say that,
In the
honey.
initial dating phase, men are looking to hear what a woman likes so that he can make sure that he gives her exactly what she likes. But sometimes there's an ulterior motive. But the point I'm making is if you find someone that has great active communication, great listening skills, that is a really green flag to hold on to. Because again, if your relationship does not have communication, you have nothing. And so what do I mean by active listening?
Right, because actually, well, let me give you this. So the second one we're going to talk about is actually consistent communication. So if you want to put those two together, that active listening and that consistent communication, yeah, that's point number 2, y'all.
Yeah, but with the active listening, again, you want to make sure that you're hearing each other.
Right.
And what I mean by hearing each other, you have to let the person get their full thought out before you try to interrupt or interject. It's always best to just be a listener first. And then there are times when your person that you're dating just wants you to listen. And so you have to learn how to sort of decipher the difference between when do I speak and when do I just be a support with what they're saying. And so that's very critical, is becoming an active listener.
Right. One of the things I shared with you is that a lot of times I have a solution that I'm playing around in my
want me to
head.
hear you.
I just want you to hear me.
Right.
And as the man, you always have on your fix-it hat.
I do. It's just me.
It's just, let me solve the problem for you. And I have to remind you, honey, I don't need you to solve the problem. I just need you to listen. But that's a man thing.
Oh, yeah, for
It
sure.
really is a man thing, because men are fixers. By nature, you all are fixers.
Exactly.
And so when we as women come to you all with our problems, usually we have already solved the problem. We just want to hear it out. We just want to get it out of our head and into the atmosphere so that it makes sense to us and not just floating around in our head. But I remember one thing that you always say: we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means that you're supposed to listen twice as much
Right. As you talk.
as you talk. So when we think of active listening, you're not listening for a response. You're actually listening to hear what the other
Exactly.
person is saying.
Are y'all listening?
Right? And not only active listening, but body language. What is it that I'm trying to get across? You read my body language so well sometimes when I come home from an exhausted day. I'm talking to you, but you're looking at me talking about, can you go to sleep? Because you are exhausted.
And again, listening is more than just verbal.
Yeah.
Listening is also, like you said, body language, because body language
It's that
plays
communication.
a good percentage of listening
Yeah, it's over 85%.
and communicating.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that body language is over 85%. And so when we talk about, and even the energy that people bring,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
right? When people bring the negative energy, or you can feel that something's just not quite right. So when we talk about that active listening, we're actually taking it one step further with that consistent communication, which is point number 2. How consistent are you when it comes to that active exchange between you and the other person? So if they call you every morning at 8:00, well, all of a sudden that morning phone call goes to a text, and from a text to, oh, now is when I can get you later on in the day because I was so busy. Wait a minute. That's not consistent communication.
Right.
Right?
Let me elaborate and go back to this active listening, because when you're dating, when you're getting data, one of the key things to look for also with active listening is whether or not the person is giving you their undivided attention. You're talking, but
that's
they're
good.
texting. You're talking, but they're looking at their phone. You're talking, but they're really not paying attention.
Right.
So in that case, that cannot be active listening.
Right.
When you're not listening with your eyes and your ears.
Right.
Because there's a difference between active listening by, just one phase of it. You have to be an active listener by paying close attention, staying off your phone, and engaging in the conversation. So going back to the consistent communication as well, we start talking about consistent communication. I tell women this all the time, and I tell fellas this. Fellas, we set patterns.
Yeah.
Sisters, we set patterns. If you watch the pattern when you first start dating, whenever that pattern starts shifting, what do I mean by pattern? Let me just give you a couple of examples. When a person when you first meet a person, they're always like communicating with you via phone call, via text, hey, just checking on you. That's always going to be the case in the first few months, or if I can just be totally honest with you, until he gets what he wants. But
Say that one
that's a
more
whole nother conversation. But the point I'm making is we set patterns. And ladies, you set patterns.
Yeah, we do.
And the thing about it is, when you notice the pattern shifting, then you know to keep your eyes open. But we're talking about green flags today. So if you have someone who is consistent in their communication, they're consistent in staying in touch, they're consistent in making sure that you're good, then that's a real good green flag.
Yeah, that's a good flag.
Yeah.
I like that. So the first one is active listening. The second one is what?
Consistent
communication. Here's the third one. I like the third one. Respect for boundaries. So we talk an awful lot about boundaries here.
It's critical.
Boundaries are critical. And we've explained that boundaries are simply this. They are your expectations.
That's it.
They are your non-negotiables. What you will not put up with, you put a boundary to make sure it doesn't happen. Here's the thing about boundaries. Boundaries are good for us. right? They protect us and they protect other people.
For sure.
A boundary becomes a suggestion when you're not consistent in the way that you protect your boundary. I think in a few episodes ago, I gave the example of putting a do not
Trespass.
no trespassing sign up and using that as a boundary and making sure not only is the boundary placed up there to show where the boundary starts and where it ends, but there's also a warning sign, do not trespass. And it also gives you the consequence of what happens if you trespass.
Right.
Violators will be what? Prosecuted.
For sure.
So that's the purpose of a boundary physically. But when we think about boundaries emotionally and mentally, we need to make sure that we respect each other's boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you have a person who respects your boundaries, who doesn't try to cross the line with a boundary that you've set in place, then
Right.
quite naturally, that's another sign of a green flag, because a lot of men don't have great respect for boundaries. I'm not saying all, but there's and one, because they don't understand what that looks like.
Right.
Because most men have not had to deal with a person setting standards and boundaries
Right.
in place. So a lot of times they cross those boundaries because they have been able
Because
to cross
women
them,
love them.
right in
Yeah.
the past.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that when you run into someone that respects your boundaries, that adheres to what you're saying you do want or don't want, then quite naturally, that's a really good green flag to
Right.
have to establish a healthy relationship.
Right. But here's the key to that. You got to have some boundaries.
You got to have them.
Right. It can't be a free for all. Like, oh, that's okay the way he cusses me out, or that's okay the way he puts his hands on me, or that's okay the way he disrespects me in front of his friends. No. If it's not okay, then you need to say it's not okay. And who's responsible for protecting the boundaries? You are.
Right.
It's not the other person's job. Listen, when you have boundaries, when you know where your boundaries start and where your boundaries end, it then becomes your responsibility to protect them. So respecting each other's boundaries, which means that you got to go back to number 2, which is that consistent communication. You've got to have conversations about what those boundaries are. One of my boundaries, one of my non-negotiables is you can't put your hands on me. And part of that is because of the way that I grew up in the family that I grew up in with my parents.
Right.
And so that is one of my boundaries. I'm crystal clear on it. It doesn't change. It's been that way for 25 years with Lawrence, and so we've talked about that, but we've talked about it at great lengths while we were dating. And I gave him the explanation for why that is such an important boundary for me. It's not his job to protect my boundary. It's my job to protect my boundary.
Now, one thing that she did not say with that, when she said, I could not put my hands on her, that's another conversation. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Here is number 4. Does that person take a genuine interest in your life? If they do, that's a green flag. Can I tell a story?
Tell us. I don't know what story you're going to tell. As long as it's not a lie.
No. So when Lawrence and I were dating, I used to judge cheerleading competitions. Remember that?
Sure.
And Lawrence and I, when we started dating, he would call me. He's like, what are you doing on Saturday? I was like, oh, I got to go judge this cheerleading competition. Guess who would go to the cheerleading competitions?
That's right.
That's right. He would go with me to the cheerleading competitions. And sometimes they were 2 hours away. So we would be in the car having conversation about what I judged on the way back. And he would give his own commentary of some of the teams and what he thought they did good on and their expressions and everything, and the gymnastics that was in those programs. But it was so interesting to have somebody who genuinely enjoyed what I did.
Yeah. But to take it a little further, when you start talking about someone who has your interest at heart, who has a genuine concern for you, truth of the matter is, when you find a person that's interested in your growth, interested in your success, interested in pushing you to become better, that's a green flag. Because most times in relationships with a lot of guys, they can be selfish.
Yeah.
They look out for themselves.
Right. They want what they want.
Right. But they don't realize that when you are looking out for the other person, you're making sure that you are taking interest in what they like. It makes a big difference. And a lot of times, ladies, you have to realize that when you find someone, watch this, not that you got to tell them to take interest in it.
Right.
But when they naturally,
Genuinely.
take
Yes.
interest in it, that's a good sign that you have somebody who's going to be a person of substance. Probably the best
Exactly.
way to put it.
Even when I decided to go back and get my doctorate degree, you and I remember we were out in the neighborhood going for a walk, and I said to you, I said, honey, I think I want to go back and get my degree, my doctorate degree. And your response was, when do we start?
Yeah. When do we start?
Right.
Because I have to write papers.
And the other part too, what really hit me is when we started that journey for me getting my doctorate degree, I'll go ahead and share, I had to get a partial hysterectomy because I was having some health issues. And it was so funny because my OBGYN had been with me since I was 18. And when he had to have the conversation with me to say that I was going to get the partial hysterectomy, your response to him saying that was, we're going to be okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not she will be okay, but we are going to be okay. And
Absolutely.
I think that spoke volumes to him because he saw how genuinely concerned you were for my health. And when he told us that we're not going to be able to save her uterus, okay, we're going to be okay.
Right.
And so that spoke volumes to me as a woman to know that even in that circumstance, in that situation, even though we had discussed our family, to have you say we will be okay,
For sure.
that gave me comfort. And even to say, when do we start our doctoral program? That gave me comfort to know I'm not in it by myself. So that genuine interest in what we want to do together as a couple.
Let me just ask the fellas, are y'all listening to what she's saying? Because I'm giving y'all a cheat code on what to do to make sure you express green flags.
Yeah, because usually we're giving the cheat code to the ladies, but we're giving the cheat code to the guys in this episode today.
That's right.
That's
Fellas, listen to what she's saying now.
Yeah, that genuine interest really goes a long way for women. And here's number 5. We've gone through these pretty quickly, didn't we?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Here's number 5, a positive attitude towards conflict. Now, here's the truth. You're just not going to get along on everything. You're not going to agree on everything. You're not going to always have the same opinion, the same thoughts, the same ideas. You're not going to always be 100% on board with everything that goes on. And you've got to be able to have a positive attitude towards that difference, towards that conflict. Conflict is actually good because conflict reveals where the work needs to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you would start talking about positive, because the thing about it is you can't have a short fuse when there's conflict.
Yeah.
Because a person that has a short fuse when it comes to conflict will not make for a good partner for a relationship, because of the mere fact that when a person has a short fuse, if the conversation is something that they really don't want to deal with or talk about, they explode.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, you end up saying things, doing things that end up costing the relationship a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. And so I'm saying to you, you gotta be at a point where you understand that is so critical of knowing what you're saying when it comes to that.
Yeah. And in healthy relationships, you should expect that conflict.
Positive.
Yeah, it should be a positive exchange between the two of you,
And
having that difference of opinions and ideas.
Yeah, and I know some people say, how do you have a positive conflict? It's all in how you mature. It's all in how you look at things, because again, coming from two different backgrounds, we don't always agree.
Right.
But we don't have to
He's
fall
from
out
Syracuse, y'all.
about it. You don't have to fall out about it. You just hey, we can, as a matter of fact, we can agree to disagree on this without having to fall out with each other, cuss each other out.
Sleep in separate bedrooms.
Let's make sure that we dissect this and see what we come up with, because again, you don't want to end up saying things that's going to end up hurting you in the long run. Right. Because you can't take back words.
You cannot.
You can't take them back.
And here's the good thing about us. In 25 years, we'll be married 23 years in September. We've been together 25 years. In 25 years, we've never slept in separate bedrooms because we were mad. Now, when you get the cooties, you got to go to the other bedroom because you are not going to make me sick. But we've never slept in separate bedrooms because we were mad at each other. We've never called each other out of each other's name. We've never gone walking around the house in silence with each other because, oh, you mad. He's never had to leave the house, or I had to leave the house because we were mad at each other. And that was established when we were dating. That was part of our non-negotiables. You don't call me out my name. You don't put your hands on me, and we don't sleep in separate bedrooms. Do not let the sun go down on your what?
On your wrath.
On your wrath.
But
So we got to talk it out.
Yeah, so here's one of the things I want you to hear when she says that, right? Because most people think oh, no, that's not true. You guys have argued. You guys have fallen out with each other. How do you have a relationship where you don't fall out with each other?
Mm-hmm.
I heard you ask that, sis. I heard you. But the thing about it is, again, in any relationship, it's always best to talk about what we always say, your wants, your needs, your expectations, and your non-negotiables.
Those 4 things.
Because when you establish that in the initial dating phase, no one can say, I didn't know.
Right.
And when you are in a relationship where a person has no excuse to say, well, I didn't know, then quite naturally, if they cross that or if they do something that goes beyond what you guys have talked about, then that says that was a choice that they made to violate that, if you will.
Cross that boundary.
And so the truth of the matter is, yes, we've been together for those years. Yes, we've had disagreements, but we never fell out with each other. We never were mad more than, maybe we hadn't really been mad.
Yeah.
Just, you disagree and you just move on.
Yeah.
But it's maturity, though.
That's it.
I can give you all a class on how to become more mature. Maybe next episode.
And we always talk about the difference between an argument and a disagreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, lawyers argue their case. I tell couples, take the word argue out of your vocabulary.
Right.
The only people who use the word argue are lawyers. And in the case of lawyers who argue their cases, one lawyer is going to lose.
Right.
In relationship, when you argue, both people lose.
That's it.
So that's why you have to take the word argue out, because that's only a word that should be used in the law field.
Yeah, in the court of law.
Yeah, in the court of law.
We
use that word.
disagree, and we disagree, which still leaves room for love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can we give them a bonus? Y'all want a bonus? We said 5, but we actually got a bonus one. Y'all ready for this? Willingness to bring you into their world.
Ooh.
Are they willing to introduce you to their family, to their friends? Are they willing to introduce you to their kids if they have kids? Are they willing to introduce you to their mama, their daddy, their sisters? Or are they keeping you a secret?
And if I could just elaborate on that, even with that, willing to bring them into your world. Now, quite naturally, when you first meet, you're not expected to go meet their family the first day, second day, things of that nature, because you're trying to see if you're even compatible. And I will say this, that compatibility is a must. Now I'll digress. Let's go back to this. And so the truth of the matter is, when you start talking about someone who brings you into their world, what is their world? Bring you around their family, like she was saying a minute ago, bring you to their church or whatever the case may be.
That's it.
That is a real good green flag, because a person who feels that comfortable with you to bring you around or bring you in their world is a person that's probably going to try to at least be around for a while. Now, if you get around the family and they say something like, didn't you just have somebody different last month? Then you already know that's just games people play. And so you want to avoid that. But we're talking about really a person who you don't have to force them to bring you into their world, but they just naturally do it because they feel like, okay, this is the one. So watch this. This just hit me. So when Adam is in the garden and God brings him Eve, Adam immediately says, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, which means that it doesn't take a man a long time to figure out whether you're going to be someone he's going to want to spend a lot of time with you. As I say in other arenas, depending on where I am, I'll say it like this. A man knows if he wants you to be mattress material or marriage material.
That's it.
I'm going to end on that note.
Listen, that is it. I wish I could drop my mic right now. Mattress material or marriage material?
That's going to be a segment one
That's
day.
going to be a segment. We're going to make that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, we thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Red Flag Coaches. We hope that you take these green flags, take them and start looking at your relationships to see if some green flags are showing up. That's why we got on green today. We're always talking about those red flags, but we kind of wanted to flip the script today and give you some green flags, some things to hang your hat on, to lay your head on and go, wait a minute, this is what they're showing me. Lawrence and Tracy said that was a green flag.
And again, I will say this, the most important one is the communication, the consistent communication. Because if you don't have communication, I promise you, you don't have anything. I think it's in the words of Tevin Campbell. He said, can we talk for a minute? Girl, I want to know your name.
Come on, honey.
Anyway, good people. We appreciate you guys checking in with the Red Flag Coaches. I am Lawrence Knighton.
And I am Dr. T. Until the next episode, we will see you shortly.
Y'all take care.